Alright, so I just wanted to go ahead and do a video of a server that I came across that I now currently have listed for sale. Anybody who's looking for some cheap and very effective power, this definitely could be the system for you. This is a older CPU, server, which is actually from 2008, so it's about 10 years old. But nonetheless, it does hold up very well. Before I get into the details, I would like to note that because this is an old system, whenever interruptions or errors and stuff occur, it's important to note that, these systems at this age, computers aren't predicted to last, typically 8 to 10 years. I don't know how long this server was used beforehand. I can tell you that I run extensive tests on most of my systems. And I did run a test on this. It sat up all night and worked perfectly fine for, nearly 24 hours straight. I did run a Intel burn test to indicate that the processor and everything on the motherboard functions as it should. There's no errors there. The system works great. It does come with a 30-day warranty, though, so 30 days from the point that somebody decides to buy it for free. Anything that goes wrong with it will be replaced or fixed. If I can't fix it, you'll get a refund. And I'm also including a motherboard replacement, too. This is the exact same motherboard that's in there, because the number one thing that fails after these long-term uses is going to be the motherboard. So chances are, before anything else fails, the processor should last a whole lot longer. The RAM, that's easy to replace anyways, but that should definitely last you a good while. But the motherboard, because any number of things that go wrong on this board itself would cause the whole system to fail, you are getting a free replacement. And the good news is that as long as you hold on to this replacement, I will actually do the replacement for you at no charge. So that's definitely good to know. And I just want to get that out of the way in the beginning, just so you are aware of what's on the table here. But with all the boring stuff and scary stuff out the way, we can go ahead and get into the gritty parts of the system, the good part. So we have a fully tested system, and as I said, with all that out the way, we can get into the specifications. This has two Xeon 5410 processors. You can see here on the motherboard we do have two sockets, so that is quad-core processor at 2.3 gigahertz. That gives you 8 physical cores, unlike some i7 chips, which will show up as 8, but that's actually 8 logical cores, so it's only 4 real cores. This has actually 8 full cores, so that's perfect for multitasking. If you wanted to put a bigger graphics card in this, and say you wanted to use this as a gaming system where you could stream and do a whole bunch of stuff in the background while you're doing that, this would be perfect, because you're going to have 2 separate processors to basically handle any multitasking needs you need. With that in mind, we do also have 32 gigabytes of DDR2 RAM. Now, this is at a 660 megahertz speed. So to put that into perspective, essentially, this is the equivalent to having an 8 gigabyte stick of DDR3 RAM that's at 1300 megahertz. So although it's DDR2, don't be fooled. You are still getting, plenty of speed, and even 600 megahertz per 4 gigabyte channel is going to be plenty, because this basically has 4 8 gigabyte sticks, which is ideally the same as if you had 4 8 gigabyte sticks. That's a tongue twister, I know. But if you had 4 8 gigabyte sticks that are DDR3, and that's 32 gigabytes total, that is the equivalent to having 8 4 gigabyte sticks in DDR2. So hopefully that makes sense, just to give you a perspective of how the speed of the RAM works. So it's definitely fast, but it's DDR2, not DDR3, which doesn't actually affect most things. It definitely won't affect performance in gaming or most day-to-day tasks. Moving on from that, I'll go ahead and show you that the storage on this is a hard drive that is 250 gigabytes for the boot drive, and that runs directly onto the SATA port on the motherboard. And then we actually have three 3 terabyte hard drives that are in a RAID 0 format, which gives you 9 terabytes, or actual space would be 8.18 terabytes of storage. So you definitely have plenty of storage on this thing for all your needs across 8 hard drives. It's going to be plenty with the 32 gigabytes of RAM and the 8 cores and the 8 terabytes. I mean, you pretty much are set for just about any number of multitasking or big type programs you need. This is definitely a more powerful system than most basic entry servers that you're going to buy, even that are, you know, new today. With that in mind, we'll take a look at the motherboard real fast here so you can get an idea of what's on the motherboard. Please excuse the mess off to the side here. We do have those 8 DDR2 RAM slots. We have the 2 LGA 771 processor sockets. We have 4 5-pin fan connectors here, so you can definitely switch this to another case, add plenty of fans. We have 2 full PCI X legacy slots. We have 2 PCI 8-lane slots, and then we have 2 PCI 16-lane slots, and whatever this is here, I don't know, to be honest. It does have an onboard ATI E51000 video controller for the onboard VGA port. That's a pretty slow, basic graphics controller, though, so going on to the actual system, I added in some stuff. Starting with the top up here, we have the HD 6450 GPU with 1 GB of video memory. It's a basic card, but it's definitely miles above the onboard video, and it should be able to handle most basic things that you need nowadays. It'll even play Fortnite, which I'll try to get that shown to you here in a little bit. Then we have the Adaptec plugged into the 8-lane connector here, and that is a RAID controller. It has 4 SATA ports on it, 3 of which are taken up by those hard drives. Then we have down here a PCI USB 2.0 expansion card, which has 1 internal USB 2.0 slot. And we actually have right here at the tip of my finger, that's another onboard internal USB 2.0 slot. And then below that, because the motherboard does not have onboard audio, I did go ahead and put in a audio card for you. This has digital audio out. It has 4 channels. It has 2 line ins. On the back of this PCI USB card, we have 4 USB ports, in addition to the 2 that are on the back of the motherboard here, and then the 2 that are here. So that does give you, that would be 10 USB ports total. So you definitely should have plenty of I/O expansion on the outside. Going back to the motherboard here, we do actually have 2 Ethernet ports. These are gigabit Ethernet ports. They're Intel Pro. So you have plenty of bandwidth options for if you need to set up something like that. And that's pretty much it when it comes to the noticeable things about the system. It does have a 550 watt power supply to power everything. We have this massive fan with this shroud that channels air through the RAM slots and pulls air from underneath those CPU sockets. The system does come with a front lockout key here, which you basically just stick into here to unlock it, and then you open it. You unscrew this, and then that's where you get access to the 3 RAID hard drives and the boot drive down there. And then we don't have any disk drives on there, and this floppy slot here doesn't actually function. That's just to keep there from being a hole here, but I did unplug that because nobody uses floppy drives anymore. So hopefully that gives you a general idea on the system. Oh yeah, and sorry, I'm all over the place. The motherboard here does have 6 SATA ports. These are 3 gigabytes. And then it has an IDE port over here. It does only have the 1 USB header right here, which is taken up by these 2 front USB ports. Give me just a moment. Let me think. Yeah, I want to say that that's it. That's pretty much all the important stuff about the system. So, with that in mind, of course, if you have any more questions about it, feel free to message me. The motherboard model is a S5000 PSL, if you're wanting to look up more detailed specifications of that. And I guess we'll go ahead and end the video just showing you a quick capability of the graphics card, primarily just by running Fortnite, as I do typically with all my systems. And we will go from there.